welcome to Fine Print with me, Amir Arfa. Upper IAEA line reflects new management. The latest report on Iran by the UN's nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, reflects a tougher approach by the agency under its new Director General. While the language is stronger, it is less clear what the evidence is. There are still more questions than answers. The effect, though, is that the headlines taken from this report are more dramatic, and the arguments for sanctions are more pronounced. What has happened with this report is that the new IAEA chief, Yukio Amano, a Japanese lawyer and diplomat, is more open in saying that Iran's activities do raise concerns, not just about its past programs, but about its present. And speaking of more dramatic headlines, we have, with Mohammad al-Baradei out of the way, the truth can now be revealed about Iran's nuclear weapon program.
Well, of course, still we should not underestimate the fact that this report and previous reports of former Director General give a clear message that all nuclear material and activities are for peaceful purposes, and there have not been any evidence of diversion. That is what all reports would say.
Let's compare the first paragraph with the one done in the last report of Mohammad al-Baradei on Iran back in November. Back then, the first paragraph, the summary section read, "The agency continues to verify the non-diversion of declared material in Iran." While Iran recently submitted preliminary design information on the Darhavan reactor, it continues to assert that it is not bound by the revised Code 3.1 of the subsidiary arrangements, general part to which it agreed back in 2003 and which ceased to implement in March 2007. Article 47 of this report goes, Iran is not implementing the requirements contained in the relevant resolutions of the Board of Governors and the Security Council, including implementation of additional protocols which are essential to building confidence in the exclusively peaceful purpose of its nuclear program and to resolve outstanding questions. In particular, Iran needs to cooperate in clarifying outstanding issues which give rise to concerns about possible military dimensions to Iran's nuclear program.
This report is much tougher. It's longer, it's tougher, and it says, while it's true that it says that it verifies that no material has been diverted, sort of secretly taken away, what it explicitly raises in the second half of that sentence that you read, Amir, and elsewhere in the document, it's essentially saying we can't be sure, we can't confirm that all the activities are peaceful because we wonder whether there are activities we are unaware of. Clandestine or covert activities, and this is the first time that that sort of issue has been put in an IAEA document, and one would have to say that that's significant.
I admit the language is rather different. This second part of this paragraph has nothing to do with the first part because in fact what is talking about is declared material, nuclear material, and undeclared nuclear material as the phraseology of the safeguard agreement is concerned. And the fact of the matter is that the Director General al-Baradei always also reported that all declared nuclear material have been accounted for. And of course, when they come about the issue of additional protocol, former Director General was saying that without additional protocol, it is difficult for the agency to give full assurance for absence of undeclared nuclear material. That was the sort of more legal way of putting the things, though of course many countries which are not applying additional protocol do not agree as using it as a pretext of judgment for peaceful nature or not peaceful nature due to the fact that additional protocol is not a legally binding instrument.
Iran recently began feeding low-enriched UF6 produced in FEP into the cascade of PFEP with the aim of enriching up to 20% in U-235. Period of notice provided by Iran regarding related changes made to PFEP was insufficient for the agency to adjust the existing safeguards procedures before Iran started to feed the material into PFAP.
Two things on that. First, I do believe that crossing the 20% threshold is politically provocative. There was no need to do it. As a letter from the French, Russian, and American governments indicated, Iran could buy this material on the open market. Even if it enriched to 20%, it doesn't have the technical capability to fashion it into fuel rods in time enough for it to be used in the reactor before the reactor would be shut down. So I think, this is more about the politics inside Iran right now. You have Foreign Minister Motaki saying a deal is days away, we're very, very close to a deal, and then 2 days later you have Ahmadinejad saying we're going to 20%.
Please let me answer one by one the questions or ambiguities which was created by what Mr. Walsh was mentioning. I have in fact, complete answer to those questions. The problem is, of course, he's not aware of the many details that I'm aware of it. First of all, when I officially informed the agency that we are going to start, in fact, to up to 20% enrichment, then the same day, immediately I received a matter of hours from Mr. Nakarst, the head of the safeguard, operation, acknowledging my letter and informing that the inspectors have been instructed to be there and everything could start. Therefore, I have these papers, and if needed, then I will reflect it to the media so that they know everything have been in accordance with obligation, very well organized manner, and therefore we did it exactly when it was we were supposed to do so. One important thing is that we have not started this new activity to 20% somewhere else. We have been starting the same place that 24 hours cameras are sitting there and inspectors are doing their routine inspections. In fact, we just were supposed to inform them that we are just removing the material and they have to, cut the seals and put the new seals in the container. And they did it so before. Therefore, the container was sealed in the right place and right time. These are unfortunately misleading information, and I noticed that, of course, this part of the report will give some sort of ambiguities for outsiders when they're reading it. I will raise this matter in the Board of Governors. I've already in fact explained and objected the department that they should have clarified and reflected in a better way so that they will not create confusions. Therefore, that has been done in accordance with obligation. Now, regarding the issue of the enrichment, going to 20% enrichment, I categorically reject the assessment of our guest, your guest, in fact, for linking this one to internal politics or so. The fact is that 2nd of June, I wrote a letter to Director General, former Director General, and we requested that we need a fuel for terrorist reactor. The same person that talking to you, myself, I did the same thing over 25 years ago or so to Mr. Hans Blix. And he reflected the letter to our potential suppliers. This time also we did it, and we expect them to come to the meeting and to give us the potential suppliers offers. The fact that has not been correctly revealed or reflected to the media is that the Director General proposal, in fact, was a proposal of Russian and US and then later on France in a non-paper given to us in September. Therefore, this was the proposal given to us, and we waited so long, even the 3 days negotiation which we had, there were two proposals on the table at the end of the day. One proposal was based on the non-paper of US, Russia, and France, which was reflected in the general standard text of the DG, and the whole world assumed that this is DG proposal. And those three countries accepted the DG proposal. In fact, they accepted or agreed with their own proposal. The other proposal on the table was our proposal with the simultaneous exchange of nuclear material, which was never raised. And therefore, we all delegations after 3 days went back to come back to negotiating table, and they never came back to negotiating table. And this is nothing to do necessarily, as it was said, with the internal politics or so. the position of Islamic Republic of Iran, which was reflected by the representative that I have the honor to be, has been very clear and no change. We have been requesting the agency in accordance with the statute to do its mandate, facilitating this project. Unfortunately, we open a new chapter of opportunity for the others that they will seize this opportunity. They didn't do it. We had received a fuel from Argentina by paying for it, and we got it. But this time they put another condition. They wanted the material also out of Iran, equivalent material. Iran showed the maximum concession accepting it. And that is what I did also reflect to Amano, Mr. Amano as a new Director General, on 5th of January. And I said our proposal on the 5th of January still is valid and on the table. And therefore, but unfortunately, there was no response. 5th of February, I informed all ambassadors of non-aligned movement that in order to show our utmost cooperation, still that proposal is on the table. There was no response. Then I informed my capital. Then my capital noticed that we cannot wait more than 9 months for this fuel. Therefore, we had no option than to go to up to 20%. This is exactly what has happened, and therefore we did exactly what we were supposed to do it. And of course, now this is up to the international community who should be blamed. Therefore, in fact, those who insisted on their own proposal and didn't show any compromise, and they wanted to put condition on giving the fuel for this humanitarian purpose, they should be blamed for it. But anyway, we in fact tried our best to work in that direction.
In Article 30, the agency says, in accordance with Article 39 of Iran's Safeguards Agreement, agreed subsidiary arrangements cannot be changed unilaterally, nor is there a mechanism in the Safeguards Agreement for the suspension of a provision agreed to in subsidiary arrangements. Therefore, the modified Code 3.1, as agreed by Iran back in 2003, remains in force for Iran.
Well, you know, you can't, when you join NPT and you sign safeguards agreements, we can't let every country pick and choose which parts of the agreements they're going to do. They're going to abide by one part on Monday and then not abide by it on Wednesdays and then come back on Thursday and say yes. When you commit, and you're obliged to follow the rules. If everyone gets to pick and choose, there's no point in having any rules.
This is a big mistake. 3.1 code was not part of the NPT. This was a decision by Board of Governors in 90s, and no country were obliged to sign it. That's the reason until 2003 we had not signed it. There was an appeal from Director General. We did it. After this issue was sent to New York, then we stopped it. This is completely different. Even in the NPT, there is a provision in Article 10. If any country will see the contradiction to national supreme interest, can withdraw from NPT. Therefore, I absolutely disagree with our colleague about this matter.
My hope is that we can resolve this through negotiation. The ambassador says that those lines are still open, and I would welcome that. But the way it appears in other countries is we're having negotiation by press release. We have one person who says something on one day, then a television interview the next day, then a press release taking the opposite point of view later on. I am told from people who have been speaking with the highest levels of the U.S. government that the Obama administration remains open to negotiation on this issue, and I encourage Iran to rejoin the P5+1 talks and to try to resolve this. I understand that things are difficult and there are political divisions, but that there is still a willingness on the part of the P5+1 and the agency, which is the neutral observer in all this, IAEA, to try to negotiate a solution, so I hope we don't lose this opportunity.
Regarding the 5+1, this research reactor issue is nothing to do with 5+1. The last point is the radioisotope of short half-life. And therefore, as the three ambassadors have said in the letter, they didn't notice this fact that we were importing the radioisotope when I was director of the center. In many times, they didn't cooperate sending the radioisotope to Iran right time, and many hospitals were waiting, and therefore we had just a difficult situation. And I'm happy to say that we are producing radioisotope for our people for last 10 years or so. and we are not importing anymore. Therefore, they were not even the Western countries cooperating to produce these radioisotopes to Iranian hospitals before. Therefore, we don't consider that they really think about humanitarian matter. They just have politicized these humanitarian matters. Therefore, we advise them not to go this wrong course of action. Let's find a peaceful solution for this technical matter within the framework of the IAEA.
I also want to come back to the issue that about this fuel fabrication. I know of no one outside of Iran, no technical expert, who says that Iran can fashion, they can produce the 20% uranium. No one doubts that. The question is, can they make fuel rods and make them and be good enough at it, since they've never done it before, be able to be good enough at it that they can keep that reactor running. Now, they say they can, but I tell you this, that if we continue on this path and Iran says, oh, we're going to make them ourselves, and then they are unable to make themselves, then the people who lose in all this will be the cancer patients in Iran. That the government will be held responsible if they say they can do it and then run into technical problems and are unable to do it.
Well, it is proof that we have been able, and congratulate my colleagues in the Atomic Energy Organization to prove the whole world that we are really master of enrichment technology. For the fuel fabrication last year, in fact, our president inaugurated the production line of the fuel, and I was there. And those who do not believe, they should understand that agency experts have visited, and we are capable to do so. Therefore, we have been able, we were able to do so, but we just wanted to an opportunity to have a technical cooperation through the IAEA. Yes, we will be able to do it, but still we try to give a chance to the others to come to the technical cooperation in the arena of the IAEA, put the political matters aside, let's do have technical cooperation and open a new chapter. That was our good intention, and unfortunately they didn't use this opportunity until now.
Well, on the one hand, Iran says that it has already ordered and started the production of the 20% enriched uranium. On the other hand, the president on down all say that we're still open to a deal on the issue. But will Iran stop its already in process and underway uranium enrichment up to 20%? Should the West say, all right, let's have a deal, let's swap?
We do not have that position now. Therefore, we have not had any response to our logical, technically sounded proposal yet. If such a thing happen and they in fact reconsider their mistake and the position which has deteriorated the situation, and they come in fact accepting the proposal, then our officials will reconsider and to see what they can do that. But until then, we have to continue aiming at producing our own fuel.
And now we're joined right here in the studio by Zareen Sajari, editor-in-chief of Zarqa Media, and Amar Naderi, journalist with Iran Daily. Welcome to the show. First question on the latest IAEA report. They see a lot of changes. Of course, Al-Baradei out, Almano in. A new report, headlines, talk about a sharp contrast. Amar.
Well, I don't think this report is negative at all. I'm very happy that we have this kind of report, because it gives us the impression that the IAEA is at least into our program and they are seeing what we are doing. But you can see the agency has become a little bit tougher now, for the simple fact that Iran has made a lot of achievements recently. That's why they have become more sensitive. But this is not a negative report at all.
Not a negative report. Let me have your take. Of course, let me just jump in here with Ambassador Sultani. We earlier talked to him, and his point was, all right, the agency, the one new point, the major new point is the agency is acknowledging Iran's capability to enrich up to 20%.
Well, I consider this report as more legal. You see, we had this notion that there were sanctions. We're giving reports about what's happening in Iran. But this time, the tone of this report is more in the legal attitude. And this legal attitude is one of the steps that the U.S. and its allies are trying to force to really impose these sanctions, which could influence the decisions by Iran.
Yes, but now, well, the headlines in the West, they're talking, well, this is fodder for sanctions. All right, this is giving us all the fuel that we needed. Check out what the Americans had to say. And And right here we have Fox News going, the U.S. is not pushing a formal take-it-or-leave-it list of sanctions, but is negotiating with Russia, Great Britain, France, and Germany in a package of sanctions it will later present to China, the least enthusiastic member of the Security Council, where Iran sanctions are concerned. The U.S. ambassador to the UN gave the first hint of U.S. move Friday. We are internally, quote, and with partners beginning the process of thinking through what are the appropriate elements of pressure, Susan Rice said, and that will be a process that will continue over a period of time. And I think we should be realistic about the pace. So
I think this rhetoric of sanctions should be taken very seriously by Iran for the simple fact that America has started this agenda about a year ago when Obama made that famous speech in Cairo in order to get everybody on board. So obviously from that time they were planning for this day, and this is
State
what
of the Union, Obama said it's a promise. It's coming to you guys. Sanctions. Let's check out what Obama had to say in his State of the Union. He made a promise, a solemn promise to the Iranian nation. The sanctions are coming.
These diplomatic efforts have also strengthened our hand in dealing with those nations that insist on violating international agreements in pursuit of nuclear weapons. That's why North Korea now faces increased isolation and stronger sanctions, sanctions that are being vigorously enforced. That's why the international community is more united and the Islamic Republic of Iran is more isolated. And as Iran's leaders continue to ignore their obligations, there should be no doubt they too will face growing consequences. That is a promise.
These new round of sanctions are also going to be illegal for the simple fact that if you remember in the early 1990s Iran asked from the IAEA for fuel, and it bought the fuel for Iran from Argentina. We are still using that fuel until this very day at Tehran reactor. So if these sanctions, the new round of sanctions are going to be justified because Iran has started enriching uranium by 20%, then it is illegal. Because how come if you are very concerned about our activities now, you sold out those fuels back in 1990s?
Yeah, just look at it. I mean, they have to demonize someone. I mean, there's 70% of every weapon sales on Earth has been done by the U.S. 70%. That means about $38 billion worth arms deals, which have been done in 2008 by the U.S. So what do you expect? If you don't take some country as the evil, the bad nation, and you don't look at it as, you know, they're going to build weapons, they're going to build these military capabilities. Well, what do you expect? You have the whole infrastructure of the U.S. which is falling to pieces. I mean, the whole industry. They have to catch on to something, which is the only way out for them right now in the financial situation
All right,
they have.
Let's see what it says about China, because apparently they say, well, China is the only holdout right now on the board of the Security Council when it comes to the 5 permanent members. China is not part of the sanctions talks right now because the administration, that is the U.S. administration, wants to unify the other nations ahead of what promises to be what one official called a long, hard slog. The strategies to persuade China to abstain before the Security Council, a move that would allow sanctions to proceed without a formal Chinese endorsement as we move toward a UN resolution. We think at the end of the day, China will be there and will do its part, Obama said earlier this month. But then again, we have Russia against crippling Iran sanctions, that according to Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia. So the message, guys, is that, okay,
don't trust the Chinese and the Russians. This is very simple. I think Iran is making a big mistake to count on these forces because they got on board in the previous round. But they say they're not counting on
these forces. When you talk to the Iranian officials, they say, look, we don't count on China or Russia. We're under no illusions that they just pursue their own interests. The Iranian officials saying that. They say, look, the genie's out of the bottle. It's the Iranian people now stupid. It's the Iranian nation now stupid. Nobody can stop this. Even President Ahmadinejad, if tomorrow he decides that he wants to sign off on the deal.
So where are they going to go afterwards? What's going to happen?
The Iranian nation.
What if we sat down and they're going to say, yeah, we're going to stop everything, full stop? What's going to happen?
Well, we've heard a lot of talk about a regime change recently, especially after the Iranian elections back in June. But now we have here the top national security advisor of the country, the Obama administration, talking sanctions could see Iran a regime change. And here is what Jim Jones had to say. He says, not mild sanctions. These are the ones you're looking for. Very tough sanctions. A combination of those things could well trigger a regime change in Iran. It's possible. So where is all this going next?
Yeah, I think we're headed for stalemate, and stalemate means things get worse. I think my own personal view, and I respect the ambassador, I think he does a great job for his country, but my own view is that there's political paralysis in Tehran right now, and then the West will feel, and I think this is the wrong response by the West will impose additional sanctions. That's not going to solve anything. That's not going to help. And so we're going to have continued stalemate and increasing suspicion, and I would like everyone to take a deep breath and take a pause, but I don't think that's what the politicians are going to do.
Well, this is not the first time. We are getting used to this kind of language of threats and sanctions, and they should have learned the lessons that the sanctions and resolutions have deteriorated and complicated the situation, and at the same time has created further acceleration and solidarity between the people and the government, and we have of course never and we will never suspend our activities. The only thing is that they have to cope themselves with this new reality that Iran is a master of technology, and the good reality that Iran is not withdrawing from NPT and is continuing cooperation with the IAEA within its legal obligation.
So much for Fine Print. Thank you for watching. Always watch out for the fine print right here on Press TV with me, Amir Arfa.